10. Ushalom Mishpacha. Favor and peace family, or some would say grace and peace family. Now, Scripture clearly tells us that the commandments and the law are not specifically the same thing. And it's vitally important that we do understand the distinction so that we may better understand the distinction between the Mosaic covenant and the renewed covenant. Because on the one hand, the 10 commandments are the unchanging foundation of all of the covenants of Yah. And the 10 commandments are then expressed in ordinances and statutes which provide practical application of the 10 commandments to the activities of daily life under any given specific covenant. And so, on the other hand, we then see that the law, or Torah, which is made up of statutes and ordinances, then serves to administer the specific plans and purposes or the goals of any given specific covenant. And as we've been talking about, a covenant is an agreement. And so, while the 10 commandments are timeless, the laws, statutes, or ordinances, on the other hand, are tied to a specific covenant and time, especially inasmuch as how they're expressed. And so, I'm not asking you to take what I'm sharing with you in the study and just run with it. I am challenging you to take what I'm sharing and study it out for yourself and see if what I'm sharing with you is true. Because I know that even though I'm going to share scripture with you, I know what is being shared here is going to challenge certain religious traditions. But it is my sincere desire to share the truth as the Most High has revealed it to me. Because John 8 verse 32 tells us that we will know the truth, and the truth will make us free. And so, what Scripture reveals to us is that each covenant serves to implement a specific aspect of the Most High's overall master plan for His creation. And all of this helps us to then see and understand why, for example, circumcision was not ordered in the Garden of Eden. Although serving Yah with your whole heart was expected. And Abraham was not ordered to wear tzitzits, although remembering to do Yah's will was yet expected. And Adam and his wife did not have commandments written on stone or the Torah written on a scroll, although they were given instructions on just how to live their lives submitted to the Most High. And so we see that each one of these instructions is tied to a different covenant. But each instruction was given at a specific time for the administration of a specific covenant or agreement, and each instruction was drawn from the essential truth principles of the 10 Commandments, which existed in the heart of Yah before the beginning of time. And understanding this then helps us to truly understand why in the fullness of time, on this side of the death, burial, and resurrection of Messiah Yahushua, we do not have a temple made with hands. We do not have the commandments written on stone. And we do not have the original scroll that Moses wrote the Torah on. But why? Because think about it. If under the renewed covenant, the Jerusalem temple made with hands was necessary to our attaining to righteousness, the Most High would certainly have made it so. The pyramids are still standing. By the power of the Most High, the temple at Jerusalem could have been too. Or why don't we have the original 10 Commandments written on stone by the very finger of Yah? Or why don't we have any of the other external elements used under the Mosaic covenant as a tool of administration of the laws of Yah, as a means of attaining to righteousness before the eyes of Yah? Well, the Most High shows us in His Word that He does not use the external elements under His renewed covenant. The 10 Commandments are being administered from within the born-again believer by means of the law being written on hearts of flesh rather than stone, just as the Most High revealed to us that He was going to do. And our spiritual hearts are the ark of the renewed covenant, because the Most High, through Messiah, has made it so under His renewed covenant. And we have no need of tzitzits to remind us to do what is right, because the very Ruach Kadesh, or Spirit of Yah, speaks to us from within and teaches us and instructs us and guides us. And so we have the living Torah, which means teaching and instruction. We have the living teaching and instruction of the Spirit of Yah living within us when we accept the terms of Yah's renewed covenant. And because Yah has made it so, we are now the temple of Yah, not made with hands, just as the Most High said He would do under His renewed covenant. And so let's take a brief look at what Scripture says about this matter of the commandments and the law. Deuteronomy 4, verses 13 and 14. He declared to you His covenant, which He commanded you to follow, the 10 commandments that He wrote on 2 tablets of stone. And at that time, Yahuwah commanded me to teach you the statutes and ordinances you are to follow in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. End of quote. And so, in this passage, Moses states that it was there in the wilderness that the Most High declared his covenant with the Israelites and commanded them to follow the 10 commandments written on stone, which he gave to Israel through Moses, which is then commonly called the Mosaic covenant. And so Moses goes on to explain that it was at that same time that the Most High gave the 10 commandments written on stone, that the Most High also commanded Moses to teach Israel how to follow his covenant with very practical, specific applications of the 10 commandments expressed in statutes and ordinances. Because in Scripture, statutes and ordinances are drawn from the 10 commandments. And so what we see here as we go on with our study is that the 10 commandments are the foundational principles of truth which reveal the moral fabric of who the Most High is and who his creation called mankind is to be when we are in right relationship with him. And so when we give careful consideration to the 10 commandments, as we see listed on the slide before us, we can easily see that the first 4 commandments speak of how we are to live in relation to the Most High, and then the remaining 6 commandments speak of how we are to live in relation to others. These 10 commandments they actually form the framework for the very specific words commanded by the Most High, Yah, so as to guide us in a life that's lived in alignment with the Creator, who is indeed the governing word of all creation, for he is the Word, and he is the great I Am. He is Yahuwah. And now the specific commands are statutes and ordinances and judgments, etc., which speak to very specific, everyday, and ordinary situations in life, and how it is that we're supposed to handle those situations. Some have said that they counted this body of specific statutes and ordinances that were drawn from the 10 commandments, and that they number 613. But the key point to it all is that we want to understand what we really want to understand about the body of laws, which may number 613 statutes and ordinances, is that they are an expression of the 10 commandments, and that's for the purpose of providing specific instructions for life under the Mosaic covenant. And because that's true, we see ritual laws, ceremonial laws, civil laws, and specific judgments for not obeying the provisions of the specific covenant that these laws were given to govern. And we then understand why books like Galatians and Colossians reveal to us that the ritual laws and ceremonial laws, which are generally classified as statutes of the Mosaic covenant, do not govern the lives of a born-again believer in determining righteousness. For example, the circumcision of the flesh, or the wearing of tzitzits, and worshiping Yah on a specific day of the week so as to fulfill righteousness. We see this in, for example, Galatians 4 verses 8 to 11, and Colossians chapter 2 verses 16 to 17, which is a whole separate study on the matter of the Sabbath, and one that we probably will do just as a separate study, though, because there's another body of details that would need to be covered there. But what we need to understand is that the circumcision of the flesh, or the wearing of tzitzits, and the worshiping on a specific day or days, such as in the appointed days or feast days, these were all a foreshadow of a spiritual reality that is brought into manifestation through Messiah Yahusha under the renewed covenant. Ephesians 2 verses 14 to 16. For he himself is our peace, our shalom, our wholeness, who made both groups into one and broke down the barrier of the dividing wall by abolishing in his flesh the hostility, which is the law composed of commandments expressed in ordinances, so that in himself he might make the two one new person, in this way establishing peace, and that he might reconcile them both in one body to Elohim through the cross of the stake, by it having put to death the hostility. End of quote. And we say the stake, but it was a stake placed on a tree specifically. But in any case, in this passage, we see clearly stated that the law, or Torah, is composed of commandments expressed in ordinances, and that Messiah Yahusha abolished in his flesh the hostility, which is the law of external ordinances, which superficially separated the Israelites from the Gentiles. And he has replaced that superficial separation with a genuine separation of holiness that both Israel according to the flesh and Gentiles according to the flesh can now walk in. And it is a separation from the perversion of the sinfulness of the world that is made manifest inwardly rather than superficially. And that's what this word translated as abolish in English means. It's Strong's number G2673, and it means that Messiah rendered the outward superficial adherence to the letter of the law as inactive and inoperative, because now that which is real has come. Now, there's another Greek word that is sometimes translated into English as abolish that we need to take a look at too. Matthew 5:17. Do not presume that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. End of quote. And so here we see a prime example of why it's so important to conduct word studies as we're going through scriptures, because we have to remember that what we're dealing with in the scriptures is a translated document. And so just as the passage that we just read, it says that Messiah did indeed abolish, and here we have in Matthew, it's saying that he did. This is Messiah speaking, and he's saying, think not that he came to abolish. And so we want to include word studies when we're doing our studies. Now, this word translated as abolished here is a different Greek word in the original text, and it's Strong's number 2647, and it means to dissolve or disunite or overthrow. And so here Messiah is saying that he did not come to overthrow the law and the prophets, because as a foreshadow, they serve as a placeholder. The law and the prophets serve as a placeholder for the actual predetermined act that the Most High had planned to come into reality under the renewed covenant. And so what is revealed to us as we start to see the pieces of scripture come to light is what we see is the prophets giving voice to the law. And all of this is a foreshadow. The Spirit giving voice to the law that is now written on the hearts of those born again. And that is the fulfillment that gives greater, not less, glory to the Most High. And so again, as we saw in the passage in Deuteronomy, Moses is pointing to the distinction between the 10 Commandments written on 2 stone tablets and the statutes and ordinances, the statutes and ordinances which the Israelites were to follow in the Promised Land on the other side of the Jordan River. And Moses also specifically says here that it was the statutes and ordinances that the Most High commanded Moses to use to teach the Israelites. And remember, the statutes and ordinances are more specific, practical application of the 10 Commandments. And so Moses says that it was the statutes and ordinances that the Most High commanded Moses to use to teach the Israelites so that they would be in compliance with the commandments, because the statutes and ordinances broke down the 10 Commandments into practical application. You know, how not to steal and how not to covet, and what would be the judgment for falling short. Now, what we're about to see in Scripture is something that we can easily see illustrated for us in this picture, and that is that not only are the commandments and the law separate entities, but the commandments were written on stone which is a more long-lasting material than the law written on a scroll. Okay, so let's keep reading. Exodus 31, verse 18. When he had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, he gave Moses the 2 tablets of the testimony, tablets of stone written by the finger of Elohim. End of quote. And then there's Exodus 25, verse 16. You shall put into the ark the testimony which I shall give you. End of quote. And so here we see what is commonly referred to as the giving of the 10 Commandments to Moses on Mount Sinai. And Exodus tells us that the 10 Commandments, or the 10 words, were written on these 2 tablets, the very finger of Elohim. And then Elohim, or God, gave the tablets to Moses and instructed Moses to place them inside the Ark of the Covenant. Now, Aaron's rod that budded and a bowl of manna were also placed inside the Ark. And so, in these verses, we see the same distinction as was given on the previous slide, but here there is further distinction that's being made between the commandments and the law. Here, Exodus tells us about where the commands were positioned. They were placed inside the ark. Deuteronomy 31, verses 24 to 26. When Moses had finished writing in a book the words of this law from beginning to end, he gave this command to the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah. Take this book of the law and place it beside the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah, your Elohim, so that it may remain there as a witness against you. End of quote. And so we see a distinction being made here between the 10 Commandments, which were written by the very finger of Yah on tablets of stone and clearly instructed to be placed inside the ark, as we read about in the 2 verses in Exodus on the previous slide. And now here in Deuteronomy, we see in Deuteronomy 31 verses 24 to 26 that Yah is instructing Moses to take the book of the law, which was written by the hand of Moses, and place it beside the ark. And the phrase at the end of this verse should as well be noted. Again, it reads, so that it may remain there as a witness against you. End of quote. Now, this is an important point. We will see this phrasing again in the Renewed Covenant. So, now for clarity's sake, the word book in this passage is sefer, and it's Strong's number H5612, which not only means book in the form that we know it to be today, but also the word means a bill, a document, evidence, or a scroll. Grace and peace, family. Please join me for part B of this particular segment. I have shortened it just so as to make the pieces not too long. So you should see part B being posted very soon.